Hey everyone, welcome to the New York Home Growers Roundtable. I'm Justin Battles. I'm excited to have you all here. Before we dive in, I just want to say this is our first roundtable and we're still fine-tuning things. So if there's any tech hiccups, I appreciate your patience. We're here to bring value and your feedback will help us make future events better. Today we have an amazing 50-minute Q&A panel. Which, wait, hold on, I'm missing someone. We got the Dank Duchess. She's in here now.
I'm in here.
All right. Sorry. I'm seeing it all coming in slowly on my computer. Okay. So we have a 50-minute panel where we'll dive deep into the personal experiences of some of the most respected names in cannabis. This isn't about cultivation. It's about learning their stories, the challenges they face, and the lessons they've learned along the way. After the Q&A, we'll move into breakout rooms where you'll have the chance to connect in smaller groups for deeper discussions, and that'll be about 30 minutes. Now let me introduce our incredible panelists, people who live and breathe cannabis culture and have dedicated their lives to this industry. We got Patrick King, aka the Soil King, and he's an expert in soil and organic cultivation, helping growers unlock the full potential of living soil. Jeremy Silva, founder of Build the Soil, which Jeremy's on here now, is he? Okay. And a leader in soil amendments and organic growing solutions. Dank Duchess, world-renowned hash maker, cannabis educator, and expertise in solvent extraction. Grandmaster level, owner of Grandmaster LED. He's a lighting specialist known for pushing the boundaries of indoor cultivation. And we got Melissa Moore, educator at SUNY Niagara with 20 years of experience in the Emerald Triangle. She bridges academic knowledge and real-world cannabis growing. So let's get into the main event, our 50-minute Q&A session. I'll be moderating, asking questions that highlight not just their expertise, but their experiences, struggles, and insights that shape them. If you have any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. After the Q&A, we'll move into the breakout rooms for more focused conversations. So our first question, and not everyone doesn't have to answer. It's just if it applies to you, you got a good story for it, then just pipe up. So what inspired you to start your journey in cannabis cultivation?
The lawyer said almost all the places that she's dealt with, because she does with a lot of Jersey, because she'd actually lived in Jersey, just over the border. But she said that everybody in Jersey.
Hey, can you mute your chat, please, if you're not speaking?
Instead of $8 grand a year, try like 15, 16 grand a year. So
Riz,
I'm
gonna mute him. Mute. All right, sorry, I'll ask that again. What inspired you to start your journey in cannabis cultivation?
You potentially left into the scenario. Even if it's an unarmed yard.
Anyone hear me?
I can't hear what he's saying very clearly. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
I
can
can
hear you,
hear you.
Grandmaster.
Okay.
Oh, is that Grandmaster? What's up, buddy?
Hey, Patrick, long time, man. It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
man. Good to, yeah, awesome, man. Good. Hope
Yeah.
to see you plenty of times this year.
Yeah, I think the last time we sat on the panels with Subcool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a
Yeah,
while.
definitely. Yeah, good to have you in here, man. Love to reconnect.
Yeah, you too, man.
So did y'all hear the question? I'm sorry, there was someone talking earlier.
What got you into into this? You know what? Right? That was a question. Like, where?
Yeah, what inspired you to start, cannabis cultivation and cannabis in general?
I think for me, it's just, I'll speak. I'm Soil King Patrick. I think for me, I'm just born in it. I'm born and bred, hands in the soil and cultivating anything. You know, my first memories are hands in the soil with strawberry plants. I've grown, flowers and botanicals and cannabis, applied that my whole life. There's no segregation in agriculture. I'm a fifth generation direct descendant of John Chapman, Johnny Appleseed. So I just think I'm cut from that. I'm cut from that cloth. Yeah. And so there you have it, born and bred, didn't have a choice. This is who I am, my passion, my love, my spirit, my drive.
For me, it was it was for financial reasons. I grew up really poor. You could say dirt poor, ashamed of my house and just I did it like I started very, very young. From when I was 13 was my first outdoor. And yeah, it was for financial reasons. I loved smoking it though when I started, and I loved the plant, and obviously grew to just love it and have a serious relationship with it. But it was for financial reasons and just to get ahead and to stop. Like I said, I grew up very, very poor.
I kind of have to agree with Grandmaster there. It's not that I go after cannabis because of money, but originally I was doing organic crops like potatoes and onions and carrots and such. And cannabis culture was just all around me. It's always has been growing up on the east side of Buffalo. It's just always been there. And then I moved to California, and there it was. So definitely it was a job, that was a big part. It was a job. It was a part of our culture, and it made me feel good. Being able to provide something that helped people.
I got into cultivation because I was completely anti-cannabis. I was just saying no to drugs. I did not grow up with cannabis. Cannabis was nowhere around me. I had a boyfriend who then became my husband, but basically after 2 years of being with him and he smoked and I didn't smoke and I thought it was like the dumbest idea ever, I decided to try it for the first time. And once I realized from that smoke that they lied, I basically wanted to smoke every single day, as I still am right now, and I couldn't afford it. So I started smoking and was growing 3 months later. So that's how I got into cultivation. And that was 20 years ago.
It's awesome. Those are all really cool stories.
Good to see you, Duchess.
Okay. So how has your background, how you grew up or whatever, how does that affected your cultivation style, the philosophy you use when you cultivate?
Jeremy didn't answer that. Is he here with us?
I don't see him in here yet. I've been looking. I don't know if I don't have his phone number. I only have him on email.
I can message him right now and just see if he's coming for you.
I'd appreciate it.
Well, I guess I'll start off that answer. What really inspired my cultivation style is all the OGs around me is who I learned from. I was in the Mendocino Mountains, and so I was already into organic cultivation with organic farming. So I already had that down, and my degrees in biology, so I had that background as well. But it was really just the old timers that taught me.
Yeah, me too. It was, it was the hustle, to be honest with you. As a kid, I was watching these older guys take an album cover and breaking up cannabis seeds back then, and then watching the seeds hit the ground. And for me, I was poor too, dirt poor, homeless. And I looked at those seeds as an income, and sure enough, it still is today, So yeah, I think it's just and it's the OGs in the industry that really. I messed with cultivating. I was arrested at the age of 11 for the first time, but I didn't even know what a male or female plant was back then, and I was planting these seeds, and it was crazy. And everything was seeded back then, but the female plant with seeds, it was acceptable. But when these male plants, I remember as a kid, I seen these male plants. I'm like, I can't smoke any of this shit. It gives me a headache. It was like trying to learn all this stuff was crazy at a young age,
Yeah, I think that I grew up in an area that had a lot of bikers and hippies. But when I was first younger, I wasn't really old enough to deal with the bikers when I was 13. So I started kind of hanging out with hippies, and these were real hippies, where they have school buses, tie-dye, and it just real deal growing, started doing mushrooms, and we started doing acid and mushrooms really young. And I learned basically a lot of organic practices, and when I was 13, I was using rabbit crap for fertilizer and all different types of things. We used to take cigarette butts and soak them in water and use it as a pesticide. And I know you had to worry about tobacco mosaics, but we never got it. And like, we didn't have, like I said, we started off with, we didn't have very many options. So there was, but what I did have is a lot of people doing it in my area. I grew up in Surrey, British Columbia, and that was like basically a hub for BC bud that went everywhere, like to California and everywhere. But like, it was one of the main hubs in the early 90s, where there was a lot of growing going on.
I started growing in Florida, and I was growing for 10 years in Florida, which was definitely quite illegal. Still illegal.
On this slide.
So I did, I was growing in Florida from 2003, end of 2002, 2003, and I grew all salt. I grew in soil, but I grew all salt. I learned everything from magazines because I was nervous about getting on the internet. And it wasn't until I moved to California in 2014 and met Frenchie, and Frenchie told me to go, literal words would go up the mountain and see how they grow and see how the resin would be different, that I decided to start growing organically just because of going into Mendocino and getting to know the farmers and realizing my resin would be a whole lot better if it was organically grown. So I think back in Oakland, I still have some of the salt in a closet or something, but I've been growing organically since then, but just because of the resin. And I grew up vegetarian since 85. So it is important what the inputs are to our bodies. But to me, like, it was bottom line when it was about the salt. And then when I started growing organically, obviously it's about a holistic experience. And for me, the bottom line is about the resin.
I just have to say something. You grew up in the 80s as a vegetarian, so you can understand that. I did too, and it was a lot different growing up in the 80s being a vegetarian. It was kind of funny. Now it's totally accepted, and back then it was like you were almost a freak. Like my
you were a freak, 100%. 100%.
I didn't even.
You opened up your lunchbox and you got nothing but vegetables in there, and I was eating tofu from 87.
Yeah,
really went down with that.
I didn't try meat till I was 12 years old, so like any type of meat or anything, so I can big time relate there. And yeah, when we would have lunch, or I can just have flashbacks to when there'd be like dinner time at birthday parties. Oh, special lunch for Thomas. What a freak. What? Why does it need a special lunch? Anyways, I just had to say something because I think it's funny how much things have changed since then.
That's awesome. That's a cool story. Okay, so what personal challenges have you faced in your journey as a cultivator, and how did you overcome them?
All right, I'll start. Plenty of them. I think and my whole life in this industry has been, ups and downs, and all the growth comes from the pain. So the difficult parts of my life have always been the most beneficial part. After looking back, maybe not thinking that running through it, but the difficult part was, state prison. I mean, getting arrested, all the stuff that was the hard part. I think the biggest thing still is today for me is the breakout barrier side of there's no segregation in agriculture, and cannabis is put into a box, and we still are today. So with my platform, I'm trying to be more agriculture, and make a difference on this Make America Healthy movement. But even in those arenas right now, people, we set the example for testing. We set the example for healthy living soils. We are setting examples across all of the world and in all of agriculture and living soils and proper responsible cultivation. And these farmers that are going Regenito and trying to get in those arenas, they still look at me as I'm in a box, right? They don't understand what I'm talking about. They don't understand parts per billion on testing limits and different things and sourcing. And it's like, and so I get shunned out of it. So I think that's the biggest thing it's been all along, is that cannabis has been put in this box, and we're leaders of this entire agriculture industry. And we set the bar so high that I just don't think, that's their only out, is to look at us with their nose up. So I'm still fighting those battles, but we're winning. We got a team out there. Definitely.
I would have to agree. I think one of the biggest things to overcome was the law. So like
Mhm.
obviously when we started, it was just like so hard. And even myself getting a couple years in jail as a very young person, and then being always like once you get on probation or parole, it like when you're younger, I guess it might be easier when you're older, but when you're younger, man, it's like almost impossible to get off. You always want to do something or you're going somewhere. So that like I battled that for years and years of my life of just constantly, fighting or trying to hide from the law or I've gone in hiding trying to dodge court dates for a couple of years, like, so I've been through a lot when it comes through the legal stuff. And I think that is one of the other betrayals, having people betray you, rat you out, money, or some
Yeah.
of the hardest things about starting stuff is like money and putting together a business plan and making it work. So I think that's probably some of the hardest stuff I've had to experience.
Not getting caught. I mean, at the end of the day, not getting caught. Like I said, I started in Florida, and I was in Miami Beach. I started in West Miami first, and then Miami Beach. Miami Beach is really small, South Beach specifically, and where I lived was down the block. The two places I lived were both down the block from the police station. And every single time the cops would come back, I was like, this is the moment that I'm going to get caught. And that lasted 10 years. And that had a lot of stress on my psyche because I had a life that was outside of being home growing, that dealt with like Congress people and all kinds of people who definitely were just say no to drugs. And then at the same time, I was growing a whole bunch of weed. And that was very stressful. I mean, it left me quite lonely because, when you're doing something in an illegal place, one of the easiest way to get caught is just to tell one person. You tell one person, you don't have a secret. So that part's up. And then get, arrested in Spain, but I beat my case, so I'm here. So that part's up too.
Yeah, dealing with it stigma's hard to overcome. Dealing with it in the illicit world, hiding who we were. The first thing I thought of when you asked the question, Justin, was losing a crop. That's hard. How do you overcome that? You just grow again, right? How do you overcome stigma? We went towards legalization to try to overcome that. I don't know if we're really winning on that yet. I think a little bit. I am here working at a college teaching about cannabis and growing cannabis on college ground. So, that's something, but the stigma's still there. So still trying to overcome that.
Might I ask what college do you teach at?
Did you ask where I taught?
Yes, I did.
Yes. I teach at SUNY Niagara in Niagara County. I don't know where you are, but
I'm in New
Western
York
New
City,
York.
Staten Island.
Oh, okay, yeah. My classes are online too. You can take them online,
Mm.
and they're cheap.
I'm in Melissa's classes, so they're awesome. I've been doing this for a while, and this is like her classes are top notch. But yes, please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them as we can. From the chat, we did have a question that I want to ask everyone. Is it's like the equivalent of what is your favorite color? Asked by New York State Vibes. Is what is your grow medium of choice?
I'll go first since my microphone's on, but that would be what we call in the industry live soil is what I would go with. Organic.
I mean, I don't. First off, Melissa is in here and taking her courses. She's like, she's not somebody who you go into a classroom. She's an OG in this industry, man. When you take her courses, like that's the one you want to take from for sure. Grow medium. I mean, there's no other thing but soil. Period. I don't know what to say. For me, farming and cultivating with synthetics isn't farming. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's a different vibe. But grow medium of it's soil. For me, it just is. I'm not knocking synthetic, but I'm not synthetic, so I'm soil.
Majority of my experience was in pro mix with synthetic. nutrients. That's just what we did for years, going way back in the day. But like lots of times we used organic amendments and stuff like that, but it was mainly synthetics and ProMix.
I mean, all that BC bud you guys had and all that growing up there in Canada, you had to grow everything indoors and be all secluded. I remember all that. Like, yeah, well, yeah, you know, there was no other way to get away with it.
Yeah, like you said, Patrick, not knocking synthetics or soilless medias. Soilless medias absolutely have their pros to it. You know, there's reasons.
Yeah, I think it really comes, everybody has different styles, and it really comes down to, I guess, when you what people like the best. So like,
yeah, you know, I'm always hard on this on synthetic versus organic, but I just feel like I'm a person that's put here to make sure there's a divided line, you know, between those two, because you see the synthetic washing over for years and years and years of organics or clean, you know, and I do all my food shopping direct from a farm. The reason why I do that, because I understand there's no synthetic cultivation. So that's my passion and where I'm at on that whole drive. But is there a synthetic hydrocarbon market? Yeah, when done right, absolutely. You know, when people are out there, they're crushing it on that as well. So for me, you know, people say I'm really hard on the living soil side. I am, and that's the reason right there. Not disrespectful, just this is what I have to educate, because, you know, this is the future.
So, on education, how can education and or formal training benefit home growers looking to improve their skills?
well, experience. One thing that's hard to cheat is experience, but if you can, I think like if there's somebody that you know that's doing well and being able to follow along with what they're doing, if someone's doing well, I always believe in riding somebody's wave if you can. If you can ride somebody else's success, then go for it. If something is working really well for them, and that's a good starting point. So if someone's got a whole bunch of experience, it's pretty good to be taking or asking them for different points and stuff. I don't know. I think that's a pretty important fact.
Yeah, totally agree with that statement. Like, yeah, I completely agree with that statement. You know, what I did yesterday, I don't do today. Right? I've learned stuff yesterday and was taught ways that I thought was the final roadmap, and I don't apply it today. I mean, I started with Marley mix, you know, Marley shroom bloom, Marley, you know, a bunch of different mix designs. I ended up scrapping those years ago because I started testing, right? And started finding out different levels. And you see me talk about municipality green waste compost. So what we did yesterday, we don't know. And to tell you the truth, I have people that teach me every day in shock and awe, including this undiscovered world of biology that is just like sexy as fuck. And I mean, the things that I see that's happening under the soil and in plants, and you know, these things are just so educating. So yeah, I learn as much as I teach, and I think that's an important side of it. You know, you grab a hold of somebody. If you're new, you got people like Melissa teaching real stuff. You have, you know, find your person you want to follow. Don't listen to everybody. Look at the successful story and the person that you want to cultivate, like, and learn from them and follow their lead, because they've already made all the failures, you know. So I would definitely say, you know, you can be a brand new grower and be successful if you take this little bit of advice of learning from those who are already successful and finding those person, not listening to everybody, just go in one direction. Boom.
I definitely have to agree. I see that there's benefit. You know, we all want to have some amount of self-determination, but there is a vast amount of bro science that is based on coincidences or what people used to do back in the day that, you know, don't necessarily correlate. So, but there's a lot of wisdom there. So you got on one side the people who are like, I could just go to school and that'll be it, and don't actually touch the plant. Or the people who I would still trust these people more. The people who are just actually just growing the plant, right? But there has to be some sort of a balance between the idea of theory and experience. And I think that when people can come at it from a balanced standpoint, so maybe you take a lecture class, but you also have to do it. When I do my classes, I mean,
Yes.
I almost exclusively do my classes in person because hash making, to make really phenomenal hash, you got to touch it. You got to make it for real. But anyone who's only making hash but doesn't know anything about the science of cannabis is going to be lacking as well. So you only have hands-on, but you don't have any of the proper education that's beyond sativa and indica. I just really think it comes down to a balance. And if you can have a mentor who's also always learning, then you definitely have landed exactly where you need to be.
Yeah, I agree. Lifelong learning. Yeah, I'm a lifelong learner. That's why I love education, right? Because I always get to learn. And I have to say one of my favorite things about formal education is the community it creates, right? And that we get to share and learn from each other. I do online classes and in-person classes, and in-person classes are my favorite because we really get to know each other, really create a network, and that what is really important, I feel, with education. The online of listening to videos and stuff, that's still learning, and that's can always help you pick up tips, know things that you didn't know before. Right. That's always great. In my classes, I force my online students to do discussions, so they have to talk to each other. And hopefully they share some tips and stuff with each other.
Yeah, I think that there's 100 different ways to cross the finish line, and you got to do what's right for you. And if it's working well for you, and it's just because it's working or not working for someone else doesn't mean it can't work well for you. So everybody has different environments, and you just have to diversify and adapt to what's best for you.
That's exactly right, man. There's not one road. There's a lot of roads to success. Totally.
Yeah, I've got over almost 100 runs with this one cultivar, Death Bubba, and it's like I've seen it grown in so many different ways. Like it can look like it's not even Death Bubba because it's grown in so many different ways, and there's just so many different ways, and so many different, like there can be two different good end qualities that got there differently and that look differently and taste differently, but are still good.
Yeah,
It's awesome. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's one thing I love about growing is the ability to go so many different ways and still be successful.
Yeah, and like I think like you said, or like you guys said, you're always learning. Just when you think that you have it, there's so much more to learn. Like I can go back over 10 years ago, like I had hundreds of grow videos that I made that were on YouTube that got removed, but I can look back and see them and I can cringe when I watch some of them and hear some of the stuff that I said because I thought it was right and that it could never be wrong because at that time I was doing so well and it was the best that I could do at that time. But I just, it's just crazy how fast things can evolve and you just can never know it all and you always have to be open to it.
I feel you on that. I totally feel you on that.
But just to be a little spicy, I do feel that you can be a phenomenal grower. Like we can all get to the finish line, but I do feel you can be a phenomenal grower and never have had formal education. But I do not feel that you could have had formal education but no experience and be a phenomenal grower.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Well said.
That's the home run. Yeah, I mean, just to add on that, that is such an important. That's so important information right there because with science versus applicable experience, there's no way I could be what I am unless if I didn't go in the mountains or in the rooms or in the greenhouse and shut the fuck up and watch Mother Nature do her thing. That applicable experience. There's science in a room and then there's applicable experience. And if they're not you can win the race by having both, but you can't win the race by having one or the other. And if I really had to choose one, it'd be applicable experience by far.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's really important never to shame someone because they didn't go to school or something because they can obviously have more experience than you or be better at it. And it's insane on how fast things can actually happen when you're determined. And like that person, you should I also like to never underestimate anybody, because when someone has a vision and they put their head down and they work at it every single day for in 1 year or a couple years, what can happen? It's just insane.
So
Yeah, exactly.
just so you know, I'm being specifically spicy just because of how I feel about the legal market and how off track it has gone in the various places that I've been. And I remember one time at Emerald Cup, we were having like a panel like this, and they were like, what's one thing that you would say? And I would say hire more legacy growers. So I'm pretty much bitching about it because you're seeing a lot of money being thrown down the drain for big companies that refuse to hire the people who actually have the practical experience, opting instead for people who have high titles and such, who don't know anything about cannabis, but they're just agronomists. So that's my position, and I'm specifically saying that because although we're talking about home cultivation, a lot of this ends up being, we have people who are interested in commercial things and understand that one thing, that one grower that has been generations of growing or has the experience that made them that their life for 20 years, they might be much more beneficial to you and your bottom line than the person who happens to go to a cannabis science program alone.
Facts.
Just
Facts.
that's
Facts.
Yeah, I just want to step in and say one thing. Yes, I absolutely agree with you, but just to, what a degree does for people, and I'm not saying that this is right of the world, but a degree doesn't say what you know. What it says to your employer is that you have tenacity, you're able to do things on time, hand in projects on time, communicate with people properly and not get kicked out of programs, stuff like that. Right. So that is what a degree can do. I think legacy people know a lot and are very valuable, but I just want to stick up for what a degree does,
Okay, maybe you misunderstood me because I went to grad school for landscape architecture. I'm not anti-degrees. I didn't say anything about that. I'm saying that the practice of literally making a legacy grower a second tier person because they had not gotten a degree. But I'm not the logic doesn't hold. I'm not saying anything anti-degree. Have a degree, but got degrees. I'm not anti-degree. Go for the advanced education. I went to Amsterdam. I'm pro Ganje and such like that. I'm teaching at universities. I believe in advanced degrees. I'm saying that the people who have been slaving and dying for cannabis and putting their lives on the line for cannabis, they have an inherent worthiness to the situation. But by no means am I throwing shade on having a degree. Like I said, I went through that. I don't have an issue with a degree.
Yeah, degrees are applicable experience times science, man. And the combination of both of those, man, that's winning. So definitely legacy. But you're right, legacy sometimes is hard to work with. Legacy is stuck in their own way. Like I am legacy. I understand this part of it. And being business, I built a bunch of cannabis companies, and it's been a very, very difficult for the work that I've done or the ones that put their life into it to have any play in the legal market. It's so crazy to witness how corporate cannabis can come in and just pick a few people that have, put something on a resume, but they've never been cannabis. And next thing you know, you're watching money get flushed down the toilet when all that didn't have to happen. If you just would have picked some knowledge off the top and applied that, maybe paid a little bit more what the worth is for legacy. So I hear you, Duchess, on all that. And then again, with the educational side, you got Melissa here, who's an OG who applies both sides of that. Like she's the one, right? She's got the classroom and the applicable experience. Like that's who you want teaching, period.
But Patrick, you're right where you said about money, right? Why isn't the legacy market there? Well, they don't want to pay for the price.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay $80,000 for a cultivator. They want to pay like, $50,000 for the manager, and they want to pay like $16 to $18 an hour for just regular cultivators, right? So those people get picked out of college, versus where a legacy person, wants to get paid what they're worth, and that's unfortunate. And you're right about the whole thing where they say where legacy people don't know how to, they have a one way and they'll tell you how to do it, right? Where you bring them into your facility and then they want to tell you how to do things.
Totally
A lot of
hard-headed,
people do
man.
have that thought, which I wish they'd get rid of because not everyone's like that.
It's like when we were, as an original Ganjier instructor, right? With friend, when we first did the Ganjier, we all went into an Airbnb. There was 12 of us original members, right? And then it went to 18. But originally, we all went to Airbnbs, and it was so interesting because we had all of us, Frenchie. There was just so many, Swami, Nikki. There was a bunch of us, and we were all hard-headed. And I remember sitting back and watching the screaming matches go on between hashes and water hash, right? And and we're also hard-headed, and that's how it is. So when you bring one of us in, we already expected that we should control every part of the operation. If you don't listen to us, it's disrespectful. So I understand exactly where you're saying from that. We're hard-headed, man. We never had anybody to listen to us. We never had fucking training. We just got up and fucking worked, man. We got up and did it, and we made this industry what it is today because of who we are. And we couldn't call all our buddies or go on social media and say this is our farm. No, we had to shut the fuck up and hide in the side of hills. That's where we came from, So yeah, we were a little hard-headed. So I get that part of it too. Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's
being humble is a hard thing.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think it's just a balance of having both together and having mutual respect and not ever shaming someone. Like when I was at MJ BizCon, we were walking by this booth and we were talking. There was people that they have a bunch of different predator bugs. I can't remember what the company was. And we've developed a light that actually fights bugs using UVC. And I referenced somebody else that because I flew someone out from California that I did some work with, that's an IPM specialist, and this woman just kept on repeating, he doesn't have a degree, and just started going off about his schooling. And it's after I've let her say it a couple times, but after the 10th time, I'm like, well, either do I. I dropped out when I was 14 years old, but I've developed this pesticide light that's the first EPA certified light in the United States and a lot of other stuff. So what are you trying to say? It's just kind of funny. It kind of put her in their tracks. It's like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to shame someone just because there could be things for it in a lot of different cases too.
Totally. Man, you're light. I just been doing due diligence on that tech as well, and it's super awesome, man. And so I'd love to pick up a side conversation and learn from you on that. I'm watching it. James Loud, I was in his facility, and I'm watching this, and it's just mind blowing to me. So I'm interested. We got Kagan water being foliar sprayed all the way to the day of harvest, and I'm seeing that work, right? It's crazy things that once you open your mind and really start working on things. And so, yeah, I would love to pick up a phone call with you after.
Kagan water is working?
It's working. Luma Farms, man, I'm a owner in Rosentech, right? So Rosentech, we've been working with Luma Farms forever, and they're doing energized Kagan water as a foliar and a soil feed. And that's the only IPM being put on the plant. It's crushing it, and we've been winning the Emerald Cup awards for the last number of years with it. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how we don't have to do all the shit we've been thinking we had to do. Again, it's practical. It's sitting and shutting the fuck up out in Mother Nature and just witnessing what she does. With IPM, it's crazy.
Absolutely. Who doesn't know what's Kagan water?
Oh, it's how do you explain it?
It's using acidic. It's using a really acidic water. I'm assuming is what if you're using a Kangen machine, which can go down to.
Yeah, but we do some fermentations and some other stuff mixes with it, and so they're balancing a lot of it out. It's just crazy what's going on with it, and so it's energy. It's charged water. It's got super amount of hydrogen in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's other companies outside of Kagan because Kagan's is a pyramid scheme kind of. That's why you don't see me promoting it, but I see the things it does for human health, soil, living soils, and IPM. It's just been mind blowing. doing that research as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually believe that pesticides in the next couple years that majority of pesticides will be replaced with UVC light. The people will still use essential oils with alcohol because like you can always still use it. But like I said, we've seen stuff that have broken the rules. Well, just trying to beat thrips. And like, I know they're not a huge problem for anybody, but to be able, if you have thrips in a room and you don't spray a pesticide, they're almost virtually impossible to beat, like even with predator bugs, and we can beat them now. So it's like,
yeah, no, no, I love that.
It's pretty,
I'm watching that stuff. Like it's really cool.
exciting.
I just did not to go on this, but one of the biggest learning lessons I did on IPM is I had one of my seed to soul farms, and it was about 3 weeks before harvest. Everything was looking great, and I was watching. And I didn't do any foliar. I'm not really a foliar fan. Never have been. And I watched Mother Nature, and I seen this whole coming over these mountains, these beautiful golden mountains of California and oak trees. It was like a cloud at night that would come right at dusk, and it happened for like 3 nights or so in a row. And it was these little sparrows. There was hundreds or 100,000 of them or whatever. It looked like clouds coming over, and I could see them from a mile or 2 miles away, and they came right over and dropped right on my patch. And my patch was experiencing, being attacked. And so these sparrows came in right at dusk, right before the light, after the sun went down, it was still light, and they just obliterated in my plants. Boom, and then they were gone. And I never had any problems. And the only reason that correlates with that happening is because I don't put shit and I don't put oils on my plants. And when you get into living soil and all this concept, you got intelligent microorganisms that systemically go up and down your plant. And they're putting off. If you ever walk through your farm outdoor in the morning, the terpenes coming off it midday and morning and night are all different. And those are different calling techniques into Mother Nature. So those birds from 2 miles away was actually called by the plant saying, this is what's happened to me. I need help. And that's how this shit works with Mother Nature, So when you sit back and watch her, there's no science, there's no laboratory that's going to tell you this unless you witness stuff like this going on. That's why it's so important with science and being one with a plant.
I've never been a fan of doing it in the later, like while there's actual flower on the plants. Yeah. It bruises the fruit is how I like to describe it. Like if you spray, like there'd be times when you have to do it. And try to do it as minimum as possible. And you would have like right afterwards, you'll see like brown hairs. And it's like, oh, I don't like bruising the fruit. Like up until there is any fruits, if you have to, you have to. But I like to avoid it at all costs later on.
That's awesome. So we had a question come in that I saw that was interesting in the comments, and it kind of aligned with one of the questions I had. So the question that I had prepared was, how do you see the future of cannabis cultivation evolving, and what trends should growers watch for? And along with that, I'll kind of pair it with their question. Their question was, do you think prohibition, along with the hype culture, has impeded the gene pool of cannabis? Which is why we see the majority of hybridized cultivars and designer cultivars on the market. I know that's kind of a long one.
It's 2 parts of that, right? I lost the first part, listening to the second part.
Sorry, I'll break it into 2 then. How do you see the future of cannabis cultivation evolving, and what trends should growers watch for?
I mean, it's ever evolving. We're starting across the country. You got education going on all over. The involvement is, it's moving to living soil, which living soil didn't have such a grip. But now everybody's conscious about the food that they're eating, the toxicity that's in the environment, and so that is where I'm super excited to see the industry involved. Like this year, my phone's been ringing off the hook. I've been quoting commercial jobs all over. And I'm a guy that, you won't fail with testing. And so I'm seeing this conscious, living soil, movement really, really going on big scale, and, 1 or 2 or 3 plants, and not just cannabis, man, food. Like food is where it's at too. There's no segregation in agriculture. Botanical save lives, man. Food feeds us. Like cannabis is great. So yeah, I see that. That's where I see it really moving into, and new markets opening up, and it's very difficult. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. And Melissa being in New York and watching all that unfold, there's been a lot to digest as well too. Scary moments too.
Absolutely. I think that AI and efficiency are things that people can take advantage of. And even with living soil, and as you guys know, with living soil and organics, the timing of irrigation can be very crucial. Oversaturating your plant can be the death of you in a lot of different cases. So using AI and having tools to optimize when your plants are being watered, that kind of stuff, anything to up your game or make things more efficient for anything to do with your grow to save yourself time, I think it's evolving, and it's evolving fast.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. And I don't know if you guys have heard the buzzword of synganics. I think that'll be more talked about. But, taking synthetics and organics and working them together, kind of hybrid program, and this works for large scale because as those who have worked with organics and live soil, it can be hard to scale up and to get a lot of employees working on it and having it be successful, especially when you run into pest issues. A lot of times those people who try that method, they often fall back onto more synthetic ways. So we've got this trend evolving of synganics, of hybridizing that world. And I get it. And I'm for it. Let's do it. Sure. I think it fits in certain places. I'll always, go for the more sustainable ways, and especially with more extreme weather, organics is just more sustainable, and you get a better crop out of it. So I'll always go for that. But synganics is coming, and that AI, absolutely. We see with vertical farming. I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but some big time farms have really failed on vertical farming. And I think AI is going to really help with that.
Yeah, I agree. I dropped we built a bunch of AI tools out and working on them. I dropped one of them in the link below for you guys to check out. It's pretty cool. But AI is definitely where it is. And I have a consulting one as well too, that we're doing with AI, developing it right now. And so that was a good add to this. Definitely, if you either get in front of the AI or you're chasing it, one or the other. It's different than ChatGPT where everything's going. We take a lot of information and upload into our protocols. So it's pretty cool.
But I also think that cultivators should be a little weary about it. Like, don't go too heavy into putting a lot of money into it, because as a farmer, I know you start getting a lot of moving parts in there, and you start having to be touching those moving parts and fixing those moving parts all the time, and that it can lead to failure. Yeah, I don't even know what to expect with the AI world, but yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. You have a Q&A with it. Ask a question. I got one called Canna Tender. I have bud tenders all over the country that use it in their Q&A and with questions that come in on how to relate to customers, and it's been super successful tool so far on that.
On a just home grow level, since we were talking about home grow, AI is fantastic for data and just understanding how to keep my harvest going, considering my plant numbers and having, what I need for hash and what the outputs have been. Setting up agents for that has been fantastic. So again, it's not all about creating pretty pictures. So AI definitely has been helpful in I was a graphic designer, but AI has definitely been helpful in my grow. But by the way, what's the second part of the question? Something about hyped up strains or something?
So the second part was from prohibition along with hype culture. Do you think the prohibition along with hype culture has impeded the gene pool of cannabis, which is why we see majority of hybridized cultivars and designer cultivars on the market? I don't know what they mean by that. That's from Lexi A. I guess they're just talking about designer
I think
strains or
you're
something?
thinking about land races and how we've lost some good genetics with what they're labeling as hype culture and prohibition. You know, the lack of proper breeding skills with prohibition absolutely muddied the gene pool as people were pollen chucking instead of breeding properly. Um, do I see, would we have stopped hybridization of if prohibition didn't occur? I'm not sure. You know, people really like to create new things. And so like the whole designer market, I think humans sometimes they don't like change and sometimes they really like change. And when they're ingesting something, I think they really do like change, right? We always like something different for dinner. So I think that would have already happened even if prohibition didn't occur.
Yeah, I would concur.
I agree, and I also can speak from the standpoint of social media having a very profound effect on the cannabis industry. With the democratization of information, that has brought education, which has been fantastic, but it has also brought the highest and the lowest forms of our human spirit. And truthfully, we are very competitive, which is not necessarily up or down. But what we do see is sometimes this mentality of, in a way, like tunnel vision onto winners. So then, like, you know, and I'm coming from the hash world. So from on the hash side, I can see like when you're judging cups, where you get these trends that would really knock other things off the pedestal in terms of being able to command the same amount of money because they weren't the things that were winning, which was partially based on what people were trying, which was based on what they saw on Instagram. So in that way, that kind of hype culture of I've got this fancy Mylar and I was able to pick up the Gelati Cocoa Puffs light bulb OG. And it's just like, oh, there's a level of exclusivity and a feeling of like, you don't smoke like me, which is in a way the lowest of our consciousness when we really should be very much community in this situation. So I think that has had a real effect on it. And I think a lot of times there's a lack of education about what the benefits of going back to the land races are. Because we can see now that there are seed banks that are dedicated to land races, based equatorial land races that you will find in the Hindu Kush region and such like that. But do people know what's the value of that? Because at some point after you have like A sub 1 sub I sub da 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 da, it does become muddied. And then perhaps if it was a few levels higher, you know, less mushing up, less miscegenation, then you would have something that is better for nausea, something that's better for Crohn's, rather than like, this is kind of good, but then there's this other thing that is good for you. Understand? I agree with you that like maybe land races having lost along the way. I don't think it's necessarily about prohibition. I do think it's partially about the novelty of having something new and also having something better than the next guy.
I think land race is on a comeback, man. I think all the OG strains are really, I'm seeing it coming back. And for breeding projects and the stability and not having so many different crosses of different genetics now, the genetic expressions on seeds can go, you know, if a plant is crossed in through the last decade with 30 or 40 different cultivars to get that one expression, it can go, you know, when you're breeding and you're trying to, it can go through any one of those 40 lines and go back and try to revert. That's why stabilization is so good. And with a lot of these cuts now, they're stable because they're cuts instead of seeds. But the land race is where it all came from, right? All these, the different expressions. And so I think there's a start over in a lot of that. And I really think these OG legacy strains and genetics have a place in the future from 25 on right now. We're going to come back, you know, chem dogs, all of them are going to be coming back, you know, hard, I believe. You even see the real cheese coming back right now. So
That's awesome. I'm excited for that. So last question here before we move out into the breakout rooms is what advice would you give to someone just starting out in the cannabis industry?
it's easy for me. Brand yourself. Make a brand. right? I think I told you that, Battle Buds, right? You brand yourself, man. Get a brand. Do some things in this. Get notoriety and have integrity on your brand and follow your passion. It's super important. And I always say this, that a lot of people getting into the industry, they work for a big corporate entity or even a small, brand, and then they're doing all the work and they're doing all the social media marketing. They're branding that other brand, and then when they're gone, it's over with. You didn't build yourself. So if that's you, build your brand with that other brand. So when you're if you're working for a company and you're doing social media and you're talking about the new genetic strains that's coming out or whatever it is, or products that's being made, make sure you attach your brand in collaborations with their brand, because you want to build yourself, put the value of this industry back in yourself, and you'll grow 10x quicker in this industry by doing that.
My best piece of advice after, I've built a lot of farms over the years, dozens, where we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, investing and then taking them to profit. And sometimes it's been very challenging. I've even had farms that have taken 4 years to turn into profit. And I think my biggest piece of advice is, if you're starting a business or doing anything, you have to cover every last thing with all your partners. So you cover every last responsibility, write down every last thing in good or bad scenarios, because if you don't do this, so many things can happen, and it can lead to where you can lose friendships that were lifelong friends because you didn't discuss it first. And it would have been as simple to say, this was this person's responsibility and this is this, but because you didn't, you think that it should be the others. And I've seen it just go to crazy, bad stuff can happen. And that, so is cover every last thing and come up with a rock solid business plan and make sure and have a plan. If this isn't gonna work and it's gonna fail, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is who owes who, and you have to cover those bases. And if you do that, you'll be so much stronger. And because I've been in cases where we didn't do that, and it's it causes I've lost friendships. I've the stuff that I've seen happen. It's crazy. So that was my biggest piece of advice: is cover every last base that you possibly can and every last responsibility.
Yep. Good advice. I mean, that's how it works, just like that. You were so important what you just said. And we have, not only that, we have entitled responsibilities to each partner or everybody that's at the table. And then we have agenda meetings, right? And we have somebody managing the agenda that puts responsibilities on each partner or everybody that's at that table, depending on the project. So every week we check in, and you have an agenda list of your responsibilities you're supposed to finish to bring back to the next meeting. And so those that don't do it correctly can actually see where they're defaulting in. So it makes that communication or failure of partnership a little bit easier when you can say, look, man, we got agendas for the last month and you're supposed to work on this and you haven't. If you aren't going to do it, somebody else is going to do it, but you're going to, that's taking over your responsibility. So these are good communication. That was great information you just threw down for sure.
Thanks. Yeah. I've had to pay someone to leave a house after it gets busted, and they wouldn't leave my house and all different types of things. So it's yeah, you really have to cover every last thing, and also to have a plan and be able to pull the plug if you need to. Not everything goes as planned, and you have to be able to pull the plug before, and you can stop the bleeding and get on to the next thing.
Right. Exactly.
Good advice.
I would say educate yourself. Well, neither Melissa and I have given our little view on that. I would say educate yourself. Having a brand is super important. People have to be able to associate with you with integrity, go with that, and knowledge. If you have integrity, but you have nothing to substantiate your brand that you've made, then people will quickly lose, they will lose interest. So there has to be something behind that brand. Don't think building a brand means becoming popular on Instagram. That's not building a brand. Building a brand is having a motif and narrative behind your mission of who you are and what you stand for. But also, don't just talk, be about something and provide value. Provide value and be able to stick by your name. If you can't stick by your name, let there be one blemish against you with regard to integrity. That will be an asterisk that will follow you forever.
That is really great advice. How to keep your brand successful, right? How to make it like something that people that it keeps, 10 years down the line. Your advice right there is perfect for that. My advice, I'm going to use the cliche thing, which kind of feeds into what Dink Duchess just said. Follow your passion, right? Because you follow your passion, then you want to create value, right? You have a desire to know that knowledge, and you're okay with missing hours of sleep and all of that, and sacrificing because you are following your passion, and networking as well, and really, bringing that value of integrity to people and showing who you are, and then sharing that with others so that they can get to know you and your brand.
Good advice. Good advice. I love it. Okay, so now, or sorry, that was an incredible discussion, first of all. Huge thanks to everyone, all the panelists for sharing their experiences and knowledge with us. Now we're going to move on to the breakout rooms so we can have smaller, more focused conversations.